Meghan and Harry's what to stay in California? Did you have a guess at that one? It's not children, Keith. It's not nanny, as many people suggested. It is, in fact, chickens. Meghan and Harry's chickens to stay in California. And that is an actual newspaper article in the Daily Telegraph today. I don't know if you were listening on Friday. We went through the Daily Mail, which had 15 pages. 15 pages dedicated to the decision by the Duke and Duchess of Sussex to move house, brackets, probably, close brackets. 15 pages of coverage. I don't know what to make of that, to be honest with you. I can't even remember what I said on Friday. And it was only 3 days ago, but it is a mark of a madness that is almost impossible to fully process, isn't it?
Never say never, okay? Listen, if they have to go, they have to go. If it is for Archie and Lily, they got to do what they got to do. You know what? Our Duchess of Sussex and Prince Harry have been hush-hush about moving back to the UK, but it is so many news outlets and all types of media publications talking about them moving back to the UK. Like, I literally just seen a video where a girl talked about that they were going to be her neighbors in Cotswold. I said, what? Hold on. How you know? So listen, sometimes stuff that be trickling is really true. They're keeping it hush hush because I know the kids they going to school and they going back to school real soon. So they might be moving. They done talked about selling a house. They done said all of these things. They might be moving. And there is a reason behind it. It is more to them having some UK culture in their childhood. I think it's way more than that. I think that our King Charles is sicker than what everybody's talking about. Listen, it is what it is, right? I get it. And you know what? Our Duchess of Sussex is that type of girl. She rolling with her man. But I know one thing. They going with a whole different mindset. Ain't gonna be no playing no games. They not working royals. They ain't interested in working royals. They gonna move back to the UK and live their same life like they've been living in Montecito. It is what it is. She is going to run as ever. He is going to do his business. They're going to do their businesses together and they're going to thrive. And you know what? We're always going to be here in the US, but I know one thing. When they get back to the UK, y'all better treat them well. That's all I got to say.
87% of the population don't care. They are indifferent to Harry and Meghan coming back to the UK. Our newspapers are so obsessed with them, and not just the ones that Prince Harry tried to sue. All of our newspapers are obsessed with them. They haven't even moved back yet, and the speculation is off the charts. I'm looking at some of the front pages from the past couple of days. First one, Daily Mail. Sussex security could cost taxpayers $5 million a year. We don't even know anything about their security arrangements yet. Harry swanning back must be enraging for William. The Daily Telegraph, massive picture of Harry's face. Harry hopes to win back the King's trust. We don't know. Nobody who comments on the royals ever knows actually anything that's going on. It's all speculation. But some of the opinion pieces that have been written online are unhinged. It was the 7 worst school gate blunders that Meghan must avoid. And I thought to myself, how has this piece come about? Is it that somebody in the run-up to September, when all the kids go back to school, somebody had pitched an opinion piece about school gate blunders? And then the editor learns that Harry and Meghan are coming back and going, great, write the piece, but can you somehow shoehorn Meghan Markle into this? That Meghan must have, there's no reason to insert Meghan Markle into this imaginary scenario where parents are doing schoolgate blunders at all. There's no reason for her to be there in your imagination doing blunders at the schoolgate. And yet there she is. What is going on? What is going on?
Because of the money. That's why.
Just wonder whether part of the reason they fled in the first place is because people have such strongly held views on them, and perhaps when you are receiving an avalanche of them on a daily basis, maybe that's too much for anyone to handle. And maybe
Surely
they've
it's gonna be too much
restocked,
for anyone
regrouped, they're coming back, they're two human beings. We don't know anything about their marriage because only the people in the marriage know.
I think a legitimate criticism might be that they've been a little bit self-absorbed. You know, their narrative has seemed the most important thing at times, and they've said things that kind of conflict. But even somebody like me is like, I don't hate them. I find them occasionally irritating, but I'm also aware that they're still, you know, relatively young, and I just believe in redemption.
But do you remember the excitement? We were looking at pictures that Jeremy was playing earlier from the wedding, and I remember I was on air, on the radio during the wedding, and there was a sort of general excitement.
Yeah.
There we go, see some pictures there. There was a sort of the royal family's new chapter.
Yeah.
There was the sort of the young new beginnings. Where did all that go, and could they bring that back?
I don't know. I think there are certain things, as you say, I think we can probably all agree. Some of the show that Meghan has is a bit unrelatable. You know, people kind of are like, what are you doing making things for your kids' packed lunch that take 4 hours? I haven't got time for that.
Stick cinnamon in everything.
Yeah, just put one of those packet of raisins and a sarnie and a banana and you're sorted. Exactly. So, you know, there's some things that maybe just people couldn't connect with, but I am just aware that the torrent of rubbish that they've received, and when it becomes very hateful, like you say, there's a difference between being a bit irritated and being very hateful, and they have experienced so much of that. I really like Harry. I mean, when you see him connect with people, he does have that sort of appeal where he's sort of, despite his strange life, sort of normal and can speak to normal people.
Afia, do you think there's a danger that by coming back they could create yet more drama and distraction for the royals, in particular if they did return as working royals?
I think the problem here is that when Harry and Meghan do anything, so sneeze, cough, use the toilet, it is distractionary for the royals, because the great British media will write column inches for days about it. I mean, this is a big story and this is breaking news and we're all talking about it, but every single day there's column inches devoted especially to Meghan. You know, what she's wearing, what she's not wearing, who her friends are, who her friends are not. You know, what she's making for a packed lunch, what she's not making for a packed lunch. And so now that they're in the UK, this is going to ramp up even more. And so, yes, they are in danger of becoming a distraction for the royal family, but that's because of the British tabloids. You know, you asked the question there, what happened after their wedding? You know, the wedding was this really joyous occasion. What happened? Well, long before they were even married, the great British press decided that Meghan was the villain. There always has to be a villain of the piece. We always have to remember that. It's like pantomime. You always have to have a villain. The British press always need a villain and someone to pick on, and it was Meghan.
Squaddies, this is where I have to laugh, because the British press will tell you Harry and Meghan are finished, done, irrelevant, nobody cares anymore. Britain has supposedly moved on. Okay then, if nobody cares, why are you still watching them like a hawk? Seriously. Meghan puts something on Instagram. Headline. Harry makes an appearance. Headline. Meghan celebrates her birthday. Headline. The Sussexes make a business move. Headline. They spend time with their children. Somehow, that becomes news too. At this point, you don't even have to do anything when you're Harry and Meghan. Just wake up, breathe, and somewhere in Britain there's probably somebody reaching for a keyboard. And that's the part regular people notice. Because if I tell you, I don't care about that person, but then I spend my entire day checking what they're wearing, where they're going, what they posted, who they spoke to, and what they might do next. Come on, I clearly care. You can't convince people otherwise. And this is why the whole Harry and Meghan are irrelevant line doesn't really add up. If they were genuinely irrelevant, the press could simply stop talking about them. Easy. Move on to something else. Talk about the working royals. Talk about William. Talk about Kate. Talk about Charles. Talk about Camilla. There is an entire institution sitting right there. But somehow, Harry and Meghan remain the people getting everybody worked up. Why? Because they generate attention. That's the uncomfortable bit. Harry and Meghan don't need a palace announcement to create a headline. They don't need a royal engagement. They don't need to stand on a balcony waving at anybody. The press can take the smallest Sussex story and turn it into a full-blown circus. And regular people aren't stupid. We can see what's happening. You start wondering, is this really about informing the public, or is this about getting people to click? Because clicks pay bills, arguments pay bills, outrage pays bills, and Harry and Meghan clearly get people talking. That's why the obsession makes no sense when you look at it from the outside. You can't spend Monday morning telling everybody nobody cares about these two anymore, and then spend Monday afternoon publishing 5 different stories about what Meghan posted online. Pick a lane. And here's the funniest part. Harry and Meghan aren't even controlling this conversation. The press is. They've left the royal family, they've built their own lives, they're raising their children, they're working on their own projects. Yet somehow the royal media machine keeps dragging them back into the conversation. So when somebody tells me Harry and Meghan are irrelevant, I'm looking at the mountain of headlines and thinking, really? Because somebody forgot to tell the newspapers. And honestly, that's what makes this whole thing so strange. The Sussexes don't have to chase relevance. The media keeps handing it to them. Every article, every headline, every prediction, every little piece of speculation puts Harry and Meghan right back in front of the public. So maybe the question isn't why Harry and Meghan keep making news. Maybe we should be asking why the British press can't seem to stop making Harry and Meghan news. Because squaddies, at some point, when you keep saying you don't care while constantly checking what somebody is doing, that's not indifference, that's an obsession. Now, let's talk about the part nobody wants to say too loudly, money. Because squaddies, let's not pretend these newspapers are running on fresh air and good intentions. News is a business. People click, advertisers notice, websites get traffic, stories get pushed harder, and the more people argue, the better the numbers can look. Now ask yourself, who reliably gets people clicking? Harry and Meghan. That's why something that would normally be a tiny little celebrity update can suddenly become a royal emergency when Meghan's name is attached to it. Meghan posts a picture, article. Harry goes somewhere, article. They make a business move, suddenly everybody has an opinion. They spend time with their children, somebody somewhere is probably writing a headline about it. And then you see the comments underneath, people arguing, people defending them, people attacking them, people saying I don't care while reading the entire article. That's the game. You don't even have to like Harry and Meghan to become part of the traffic. If you click because you're angry, that's still a click. If you click because you want to defend them, that's still a click. The media doesn't necessarily need everybody to agree, they just need everybody to engage. And Harry and Meghan are incredibly effective at generating that reaction. That's why I think regular people need to look beyond the headline. Ask yourself, why is this story being pushed so hard? Is there genuinely something important happening? Or is somebody thinking, put Harry and Meghan in the headline and watch what happens? Because that's a completely different conversation. And here's where the hypocrisy becomes hilarious. The same media outlets can spend 1 minute telling us Harry and Meghan are yesterday's news, then spend the next 6 hours talking about them. Well, which one is it? If they're really that irrelevant, stop clicking the publish button. But they don't, because the Sussex name still gets attention, it gets reactions, it gets arguments, it gets people talking. And in the online media world, attention is currency. So maybe Harry and Meghan aren't the problem here. Maybe they're simply the most reliable traffic generators the royal press has. And that's why they keep coming back to the Sussex story. Because as long as people are clicking, commenting, sharing and arguing, there's money to be made. So the next time you see another ridiculously dramatic headline about Harry or Meghan, don't just ask, what did they supposedly do now? Ask a much simpler question. Who benefits from me clicking this? Because sometimes the biggest story isn't Harry and Meghan, it's the business model behind the headline.
Squaddies, and this is where I have to ask the British press a very simple question. Do you guys have a Sussex rota? Because honestly, the level of monitoring is wild. Harry and Meghan can be minding their own business, living their lives, raising their children, working on their project, and somehow somebody in Britain is still keeping tabs on them. Meghan uploads something, somebody is screenshotting it. Harry gets spotted somewhere, somebody is already writing the headline. They make a decision about their family, suddenly we have 10 experts explaining what it might mean. And if absolutely nothing happens, don't worry, they'll just write about what could happen next month. Squaddies, at this point I'm expecting a headline saying, Prince Harry sleeps for 8 hours, royal experts react. You laugh, but you know what I mean. The funniest part is that these are often the same people who accuse Harry and Meghan of wanting attention. Hold on, if they supposedly want all this attention, why is the press doing so much of the chasing? That's the part that regular people notice. Because if somebody genuinely doesn't interest you, you don't spend your entire day checking their social media, analysing their clothes, tracking their movements, and speculating about their next move. You just move on. Simple. If your neighbour says they don't care what you're doing, but somehow knows when you left the house, where you went, what you bought, and who visited you, you're probably going to think, mate, you're a little too invested. That's how this feels. And let's be clear, reporting something genuinely newsworthy is one thing, but when every tiny Sussex detail can be stretched into a headline, followed by another headline about the first headline, followed by somebody's opinion about the headline, come on. At some point, we're not talking about ordinary reporting anymore. We're talking about a machine that has learned Harry and Meghan are guaranteed attention. And the irony is beautiful. The press keeps telling us the Sussexes are irrelevant, yet the press itself refuses to leave them alone. They keep checking, they keep watching, they keep speculating, they keep publishing. So who's really keeping this story alive? Harry and Meghan, or the people who can't stop writing about Harry and Meghan? Because if the Sussexes are supposedly yesterday's news, somebody in that newsroom clearly didn't get the memo. And honestly, squaddies, they might as well put a little sign outside the office. Sussex Marketing Department open 24 hours. Because apparently, Harry and Meghan don't need to make news. The royal media machine will make the news about them all by itself. Now, let's zoom out for a second, because this is where things get really interesting. We have an entire royal family. An entire royal family. William is there, Kate is there, Charles is there, Camilla is there. And then, of course, there are the ongoing controversies around Andrew. There is no shortage of royal stories. Yet somehow, the Sussexes keep finding their way back onto the front pages. Harry does something, headline. Meghan does something, headline. They don't do anything, somehow that's a headline too. And that's what makes you stop and think. Because maybe this isn't really about who's doing the most royal work. Maybe it's about who gets people to react. Harry and Meghan can post something completely ordinary, and suddenly you've got thousands of people arguing about it. One person says leave them alone, another says why are they doing this? Somebody else jumps in to defend them, then another person writes a 900-word comment underneath the article, and everybody's sitting there pretending they don't care. Meanwhile, the website is counting the clicks. That's the bit people need to understand. In today's media world, attention is incredibly valuable. If Harry and Meghan can get supporters clicking, critics clicking, curious readers clicking, and angry people clicking, that's a very powerful combination. And let's be honest, that's exactly why the Sussex name keeps getting used, because it gets a reaction. You could put a boring headline in front of people and they might scroll straight past it. Put Harry and Meghan in giant letters, suddenly everybody has an opinion. That's not Harry and Meghan begging for attention, that's the media knowing exactly which names will grab it. And this is where I think regular people should stop and ask themselves something. Are we being told what is important, or are we being shown what will get the biggest reaction? Because those aren't always the same thing. Something can be massively popular without being genuinely important, and something genuinely important can get ignored because it doesn't generate enough clicks. That's the business we're dealing with. So when people say, why are the Sussexes always in the news? Well, maybe ask the people putting them in the news. Harry and Meghan didn't write every headline, they didn't create every opinion column, they didn't invent every royal expert, and they certainly didn't force anybody to click. The media made those choices, and if those choices keep producing traffic, engagement, and arguments, why would they suddenly stop? That's why I don't buy the idea that Harry and Meghan are somehow desperate to remain relevant. If anything, the royal media machine seems desperate to keep them relevant, because the Sussexes have something that every media company wants, attention, and in the digital world, attention can be worth a whole lot of money. So perhaps the real question isn't, why can't Harry and Meghan stay out of the headlines? Maybe it's, why can't the headlines stay away from Harry and Meghan? Now that is the question. Squaddies, and this is where I think we have to call it what it looks like. Because journalism is supposed to tell people what is happening. But when every little thing involving Harry and Meghan gets turned into a dramatic headline, you start asking yourself, what exactly are we doing here? A photograph becomes a story, a social media post becomes a debate, a family decision becomes a royal crisis. Then comes the royal expert to explain what everyone is supposedly thinking, then another expert disagrees. Then somebody claims they've spoken to an insider, then another article comes out responding to the first article. Squaddies, my head is tired just watching this. And here's the part that really gets me. The same media machine will tell you Harry and Meghan are irrelevant. Nobody cares, they're finished, people have moved on. Okay, then why are you still writing about them? Why are you checking their social media? Why are you analyzing their every move? Why are you predicting what they're going to do next? If someone truly doesn't matter to you, you don't need a full-time operation tracking them. That's common sense. If your friend tells you, I don't care about my ex, but somehow knows where the ex went last weekend, what restaurant they visited, who they were with, and what they posted online, you're going to say, bro, you care. That's the contradiction staring us right in the face, and regular people can see it. Harry and Meghan don't have to walk around shouting, look at us, we're relevant. They don't need to. The headlines are doing that job for them. Every time the press publishes another Sussex story, they're putting Harry and Meghan back in front of millions of readers. So the claim that the Sussexes are desperate for attention becomes harder and harder to take seriously when the people supposedly tired of them keep bringing them up. And I'm not saying every story about Harry and Meghan is fake or that legitimate reporting shouldn't happen. Of course it should. report the facts, ask fair questions, hold everybody accountable. That's journalism. But when outrage is constantly manufactured, when speculation is presented like fact, when every tiny detail gets inflated into some massive royal drama, that's when people are allowed to say, hold on, this feels less like news and more like content. And maybe that's the biggest lesson here. Don't just read the headline. Look at what the headline is trying to make you feel. Are you angry? Are you shocked? Are you curious? Do you suddenly need to know what happens next? Because if you've been pulled into a story before you've even questioned why it's being pushed, the headline has already done its job. And Harry and Meghan? They don't need to prove they're relevant. The obsession proves it for them. The British press can keep saying nobody cares about the Sussexes, but then they keep publishing another Sussex story tomorrow and another one the day after that. At some point, squaddies, you have to laugh. If Harry and Meghan really don't matter, why can't the media stop talking about them? That's the question they still haven't answered. Thank you all for watching. I am your host, Miles. If you enjoyed the video, smash that like button, subscribe, and join the family, because you already know the royal drama never sleeps. Until next time, squaddies, stay blessed, stay strong, and keep your eyes open. Catch you in the next episode. God bless you all, and have a blessed week ahead.